Welcome to this video. My name is Christian from being Premiere. Episode 9 of Season 3 titled Revelations Chapter 1 gives a lot of new details about the history of the town, this being one of the longest episodes this season. So in this video we're breaking down the ending as well as some of the huge moments in this episode. Welcome and let's begin. So in episode 9, we got multiple storylines connecting together, each one building up the tension. Tabitha and Victor encounter in that root cellar is filled with mystery and foreshadowing, the sensation as well as Victor reveals, and Tabitha flashback. It's all pointing towards a huge revelation about reincarnation.
Reincarnation, baby.
So while all of this is happening, the episode is also centered around the search for Fatima, but also the huge revelations about the town and the characters. Each character has a different revelation they provide to another, and those are some of the huge aspects of this episode. So I'm gonna go ahead and discuss some of the major revelations in episode 9. Revelation number 1, Boy Parkinson. So we start with Ellis and Boyd's desperate search for Fatima, only for Boyd to make a heartbreaking confession. He's suffering from Parkinson's disease and it's getting worse. Seeing Ellis' reaction, and this leads to one of the episode's most powerful scenes, showing just how much their relationship has evolved since season 1. And it's in that scene when Boyd tells Ellis about it, how he knew, and how it's getting worse. This is perfectly shown in that conversation again with Kenny about how time.
I got a clock ticking on me. Yesterday that clock started ticking a little faster. The clock is officially ticking.
My father was diagnosed with Parkinson's when he was around my age. It's not supposed to be hereditary.
I imagine this is going to be huge down the line, and similar to how things are set up, this is going to have major implications in future seasons, which connects to the hard reality. Boyd has to tell Ellis about it. I mean, it's not easy dealing with all the things happening in the town. Fatima missing, now Ellis has to deal also with his dad. We can see how our parents sometimes don't want their children to worry about them, so this is shown in this scene. Even when Boyd tells Kenny about this, we'll see how he's preparing everyone. And Kenny is different as he's the one next in line to protect the town. But I don't see it happening, not now, but maybe they're setting this up for maybe in a future season how Boyd is going to die. I mean, there's a reason also why Acosta is in the town, but Kenny returns as deputy, so that's exciting. After everything that happened with Sarah and how Boyd hid this brings us to why Boyd and Kenny are in the woods. Well, the whole episode is about finding Fatima. Even the beginning of the episode is exactly this. After Fatima was taken by Elgin, Ellis and Boyd continue searching, but this is when his leg got affected by Parkinson, which is the reason why they go to the police station. Now this is important because while there's a major things happening in the town, we get these internal human problems and internal revelations. Those problems that affect those you love. I mean, the whole episode is about this. It's about how they're dealing with different problems of those people that they love, but the inner revelations and the outside revelations. I mean, this can be seen in Victor's revelation, in Sarah to Boyd and Ellis, as well as Julie to Tabitha and others. Now, while we're wanting answers, and the episodes sort of do, there is the desire of everyone finding Fatima. I mean, the huge aspect of this episode is this search, but also why. And this brings us to why this search is happening. And to know about this, we need to understand Elgin's actions. After getting a hot meal by the lady in the kimono, we see him doing all she says, taking Fatima from that shed, having the Bloody Mary cocktail ready to go, and taking her to this isolated place. Because nothing's as normal than saying to someone you kidnapped, "I'm doing this for you."
I'm trying to protect you.
Nah, yo, hold my poodle. Hold my poodle.
The huge revelations about this is how Elgin really has me on the edge of. I mean, the writers are doing something right, and it's how much I don't like the character. Props to the actor though.
Baby's gonna be here in no time.
He did something really well, and that's showing why is he doing this. He believes that by doing so, everyone is going to escape. That rings a bell.
But they said it was the only way to save us. It was the only way to go home.
That brings me back to what Sarah believed back in season 1, which makes zero sense by all the actions that he's doing. Giving blood to a baby in a town where they eat people. So his reasons are like how naive you have to be. But also all of this is already so traumatic for Fatima. who thought she was pregnant, to then not being pregnant, to now being taken away and having something in her stomach. But this perfectly shows how broken this town is, making people suffer for its own twisted game. While hope is both a weapon and a curse, this brings us to Boyd's words, when he brings everyone together to look for Fatima. Trying to answer all the why and what questions is hard already, and on top of this, giving them a reason not to break, but to have hope. He says,
We proved that this place couldn't break us.
now this is hope and it's going to hurt them in the end. We can see it with Fatima. I mean, even Elgin having hope, he can take everyone home. They're all players of their own mind games. I mean, speaking of mind games, we see this in Julie's mind game and in Victor. After Julie was taken from the ruins, we can see her now in the clinic being taken care by Christy, who by the way has not done a lot this season. She has not been in many scenes. Actually, Marielle has been more in the series than her, so. But after investigating what Julie was going through and how she says it was a dream, but we know it wasn't. And for you time travel doubters, she did time travel. She did. Come at me, bro. But in Victor's case, his mind game is just as broken. We see Victor dealing with trauma and how he feels he didn't do things right. I mean, he even says,
I would have gone if I hadn't.
Because he feels he didn't do things right and how he was a huge part in his mother's death. I imagine that he's thinking that if he didn't tell her about the children, she was going to be alive, which I mean, she is, but she's in another body going by the ending. So we see Victor dealing with so many emotions and also alone, which is just horrible. Henry is trying to understand more of his mind when he talks with Jade about it, and his response is how he's Tarzan in the jungle. Hey, but Victor's not using the axe wrong. Because when he's throwing everything out of the window and he's dealing with all of these emotions, and people of Colony House are trying to calm him down, and this make it worse by him taking that axe. We got Acosta and Kenny trying to calm him down, which is so funny because Kenny asks what is he doing, and Victor says,
I'm gonna go chop down a tree.
Cutting down a tree. It's so funny, but now some things about this is that we can see how Acosta is now living in Colony House as well as Kenny. I mean, we know that's something that he tells Boyd later. Now this brings us to revelation number 2, and that is a conversation with the BIW, aka the boy in white. This is so impactful for Victor because he thought he was his friend, but the boy in white keeps a lot of secrets. Now similar to the entity controlling the town, he knows what people are going to do, and he also knows things are gonna happen in the future. So this is the boy in white because he's also growing. He's changing similar to the town, aka now he's gonna be the man in white. And the boy in white says the following.
For yourselves. It's the only way you'll understand.
I mean, so this is huge because as we know, Victor saw him as the unchanging friend, but now even the boy in white is transforming. He doesn't say anything except how people have to learn for themselves. So there's a lot of mystery around this, and hopefully we see him in the finale as well. So this is huge about what's going on with the town, because like he said, he tried to help with Christopher and look what happened with the massacre. This brings us to revelation number 3, Julie's experience in the ruins. When she finally opens up to Tabatha about what happened, it's way more than just a simple blackout. She describes being in this chamber with Randall and Marielle, seeing someone chained to the wall, and hearing those children screaming and Huey. And what makes this even more interesting is how Julie and Tabatha's storyline connects to our next revelation when Tabatha sees one of those creepy children watching them. Because of course, there's a creepy child watching. Now it leads them straight to, you guessed it, the root cellar. So we know that Elgin brought Fatima here, so the child is helping Tabatha and Julie, but the lady in the kimono is doing the opposite, putting her hand in Fatima to make her quiet. And the horrifying part is how this place keeps playing with this twisted games. On one side we have the children trying to help, but then we got the lady in the kimono working against the town. So Elgin, oh boy. I mean, the hard part of all of this is watching Fatima's situation. I mean, we're watching her being forced to drink blood.
Here's your Bloody Mary.
Her stomach is getting bigger and Elgin is completely lost in this delusion about helping her. Props to the actress because he can see the pain in her eyes when drinking that blood. And when she discovers that hidden door, only to have the lady in the kimono against silence her as help is close, is how the town really knows how to break its residents emotionally. I mean, the whole episode is about Fatima being trapped here and the town looking for her, and Julie and Tabatha being so close. But this brings brings us to the episode's biggest details, and that is revelation number 4. How all of this connects to what's happening with Fatima and Tabatha. So while the lady in kimono is trying to hide Fatima, the town decides this is the perfect moment to drop the mother of all revelations on her. I mean, imagine discovering you're actually the reincarnation of Victor's dead mother while you're in the middle of searching for the daughter-in-law of someone who's been kidnapped. So yes, Tabatha is a Miranda. Just let that sink in for a moment. All those childhood dreams, Victor's connection to her, and why she was chosen, it's all coming together in a way that completely changes how we understand this town. The moment comes when she hugs Victor and gets that flashback of the memory, seeing herself as Miranda being killed by the Smiley monster. Yes, he's back, but not really, we know. We all love Smiley, but this is huge. It's from Twisted Reality. And think about how this is connecting to everything we have seen this season. Tabitha's visions of the children, her inexplicable familiarity with this town. It was not just intuition, it was past life memories connecting to the surface. But here's the sad thing, if Tabitha's repeating Miranda's cycle, she's destined to follow the same path. What does that mean for her future? And based on what happened to Miranda, Tabitha's journey might be leading her towards a similar, devastating fate. So what do you think? Are we watching Tabitha walk into the same trap that killed her past life? And yes, I had this theory for weeks. I was thinking about this going back to season 1 when Boyd and Sarah are talking and he says about the worms and how when split, they become 2. So it's perfection. I mean, there's so many connections, so many that are so important. And here's some of them. Tabitha back in season 2 found the luggage in those caves, which had the same sticker on Henry's computer. The bracelet is like the first clue, as they did it both lifetimes. Even when Henry finds Miranda's clothes, it's like the town is hiding everything for her to forget. But I feel this is genius. There's so many connections like memories, the song in the car, how Tabatha and Jade arrived the same day, similar to Miranda and Christopher and so on.
It hasn't happened in a long, long time. It's special. You're supposed to be my friend.
Into your voice!
Which makes me think that maybe Jade is also a reincarnation of Christopher. This is going to have major implications for the next season, because the family tree is going to get more interesting. I mean, just think about how complicated the family tree is about to get. Victor is technically Tabitha's son from a past life, which makes Julie and Ethan what exactly? And Miranda was married to Henry, who's now in the town. Same with Jim. It's genius, I have to give it to the writers again. Finally!
I don't know, something amazing, I guess.
I mean, remember, in the church when Tabatha touches Victor's arm, she experienced that weird buzzing sensation. Again, like a connection or a flash of recognition that goes beyond their current lives.
This got hit with some hardcore deja vu.
It's clear he's carrying some serious guilt about his mother's fate. And now when he discovered, this means Victor, that Tabatha's Miranda, that's going to be incredible. I mean, imagine the scene with Victor, but with Tabatha. Oh boy. There's so many connections here that are finally making sense. I mean, think about it. Victor's whole journey this season has been about dealing with trauma. And now we know why Tabatha has been so important to this. This also explains why the boy in white tells Tabatha, hey,
I really am. This is the only way.
This is why, because by doing so, she's gonna remember. I mean, again, in season 1 when Boyd tells Sarah about the following.
You cut a worm in half, it grows back into 2 worms.
This is why Fromm is so good at foreshadowing. I mean, think about it. Boyd telling Sarah about the worms splitting and becoming 2 things back in season 1. And now we're seeing exactly that with Tabatha and Miranda. I mean, this level of planning is so insane. Now, speaking of insane, let's talk about how the town keeps evolving. Because first we had the monsters, then the ruins, now reincarnation, time travel. The boy in white was not kidding when he said everything's changing. Finally, I was waiting for something like this to happen for so long, and we're finally getting some answers. But what's really interesting is how these changes seem to be accelerating. I mean, we got Julie's time traveling, Fatima's supernatural pregnancy, and how pets' lives keep coming back. I mean, if you think about the patterns here, and now season 3 is blowing up everything we thought we knew about how this place works. The rules are changing. Let's talk about revelation number 5. The town players are changing roles. I mean, think about it. This whole episode is about how different characters are moving positions. Boyd is getting to step down, Kenny stepping back up as deputy. Elgin went from a trusted friend to a complete psycho. And even the boy in white is literally transforming before our eyes.
Everything's changing now.
But what makes this really interesting as well is how the town seems to be orchestrating all of this. Remember how Sarah went from killer to someone connected to the town voices? Now we're seeing it again. And Kenny returning to his deputy role after everything that happened with Sarah. Even Acosta, who came into this place, is slowly learning to trust Donna's weird explanations about how this place works. Now let's talk about how the monster behaviors is changing too. I mean, we don't see them anymore except that scene when Boyd and the nurse monster. Now instead we get this lady in the kimono running the show. Also, the children are now leading people places. It's like the town is upgrading its players for whatever endgame is planning. Because this town keeps changing the rules on everyone. One day you're pregnant, the next day you're being forced a Bloody Mary. But the characters are finally opening up to each other. I mean, this episode is literally everyone sharing their darkest thoughts. Because we got Randall's conversation with Jim about Julie and how intense Jim is acting crazy this season. When Jim is asking him about the woods and Randall just snaps. I mean, that's some honesty right there. But what's really interesting is how he tells Jim,
"Get the van and teach a kid how to drive."
Even that conversation between Jade and Henry, a revelation about Victor, and that Tarzan analogy, because that's probably the most honest anyone's been with Henry about his approach to Victor. And then we get Jade seeing Christopher with the dummy. The town literally knows how to twist those emotional knives. And what's the scene that really hits is Donna, because that flashback to season 1 with Fatima's welcoming party. When we see Donna crying while remembering those moments, that's some powerful stuff. And when she tells Boyd she cannot tell the town about what happened to Fatima because of
Her spirit. Her light.
I mean, the pain in her voice, just how much this town breaks them. This showcase in how Donna is processing everything that's happening. I mean, the show literally inserted that whole scene from season 1 to remind us what Fatima means to the town. And even what Donna says in that flashback.
You've made this big old drafty box feel a little bit more like home.
Just breaks your heart because we're seeing how Fatima brought light to this dark place, and now that light is being affected by a guy who thinks he's helping.
Nah, yo, hold my poodle. Hold my poodle.
But what really shows the reason why Donna helps is the emotional stage she's in. And that conversation with Boyd when she says,
I don't think I can take it.
Again, we're seeing how you can see the voice breaking, showing how even Donna, one of the town's strongest residents, is being broken by this situation with Fatima. I mean, we're seeing them deal with the very human pain and tells them to ring the bell. It's just like all that build-up emotionally is finally exploding. And we understand why this searching for Fatima is happening. Now remember, Sarah went to Boyd.
That Fatima didn't leave on her own, that something took her.
What the town told her about it. I mean, right when Boyd is at his lowest point, dealing with Parkinson and desperate to find Fatima, the voices give Sarah a message about how Fatima's close by. It's like the town's holding a carrot of hope in front of Boyd, only to snatch it away and watch him suffer. Because as we saw, they didn't find Fatima. Now we have a small moment with Sarah building that ornament that Kenny broke last season, and we're starting to understand how Sarah is destined not to make mistakes anymore, but we see how, because remember she said about how she wanted to feel like a good person.
I would give anything to feel like a good person again.
But now we see how the town is not gonna allow that. It's like she knows deep down that in this town, no one's getting a happy ending. No one gets to escape their past, their pain. And this scene with this ornament, it's not just about a broken object. It's a metaphor for Sarah, a spirit, trying to piece it together. I mean, even that moment between Jim and Tabatha where they have this conversation about Julie finally being honest about their fears and supporting each other. It's like everyone in the town is finally dropping their guards, showing their true feelings, right when everything is falling apart. I mean, revelations. All of the characters are broken in a way, because even that scene when Boyd and Ellis, when Boyd reveals
They made me watch her die.
It's like the town cruelty is a disease, infecting every relationship it touches. I mean, think about it. Boyd's been carrying the trauma alone, but from secrets have a way of coming out at the worst possible time. And even when Boyd gives that message, now he's not just anger, he's not just silencing this monster, he's trying to silence his own guilt, his own fear of what this town is doing to them, to all of the characters. I mean, how much loss can one person take? Boyd's been through so much. Abby, Father Guthrie, Tian Chen, and others, each dead, is hurting him. It's like the town is using his love for his son, his need to protect the community, as weapons against him. That's why he says maybe all of that is happening is because of him.
This isn't because of you. But you don't know that.
Even the Parkinson is getting worse. But that's not the only father-son conversation that we have in this episode. We also have Jim and Ethan, because this episode really delivers the feels. Even though this conversation is a small moment, that when they're searching for Fatima, it also shows about how the trauma affects families in Fromville. While everyone else is out searching for Fatima, Jim and Ethan are having their own quiet search for answers, for connection. When Ethan says,
All because you were scared. And you were doing the best you could.
it's not about comforting his dad, it's reminding Jim and us that fear and love often go hand in hand in this town. I mean, every character we have seen make questionable choices, every betrayal, every moment of desperation. It all comes back to that primal need to help the people you care about, even if those actions have devastating consequences. So when Jim finally opens up to Ethan, it's connecting to those moments that we already saw with Boyd and Alice, and now with Jim and Ethan, about how shared trauma can either break bonds or make them unbreakable. While everyone is looking for Fatima, and we have this duo between Alice and Elgin in the woods. Now this is so funny because, as we know, it's Elgin who knows where Fatima is. Even Elgin dropping those hints about,
We don't have all the information yet.
he's offering a twisted version of hope because he knows that he's using all of this to escape, but so naive. And Alice's revelations about his mom and what happened, he says,
The way she died. Can't go through that again.
it's something that we have not seen since season 1, so it was great to see this again and how he really feels. Now that's the whole episode, chapter 1. Let's just go ahead and discuss episode 10, Revelation chapter 2. And the synopsis is the following. Boyd is pushed to his limit as time begins to run out for someone he loves. Brando is haunted by his trauma, and Victor reveals a hard truth. Tabitha's unlikely journey takes a shocking turn. So where do we go from episode 9? We know that maybe Victor's gonna reveal everything to his father. We know that Rando's gonna continue to be haunted by the cicada attacks. We see him in this episode dealing with that. Tabatha unlikely journey is gonna be interesting to see. Where does that end? And what finally some answers are gonna be provided to us. What Boyd is going to do as we see him talking with someone in the shed. That's gonna be interesting. And also we see another image of Tabatha, Jim, and Jade going somewhere. And the final question, what Fatima's going to do? And what Fatima has as that baby. Only one more episode to go. I cannot believe the series is almost over. I'm so happy that I was able to do so many videos for all of you, and that we have one more to go. Now, thank you so much for watching this video. My name is Christian from the Premiere, and I will see you in the next one. Bye bye, everyone.